and for the people. Certainly, the impeachment of a deputy president is not an ordinary legislative act. It is amongst the most consequential, solemn, and irreversible decisions that any parliament can make. It involves the removal from office of a person who holds the second highest constitutional office in the republic, and an office to which the holder was elected by the sovereign will of the people through a general election. The gravity of that decision cannot be overstated. It affects not only the individual whose tenure is at stake, but the constitutional architecture of the executive, the stability of government, and the democratic expectations of millions of citizens who cast their vote in the 2022 general election. It is precisely because of this gravity that the public participation required in connection with an impeachment process must be held to a standard that is both qualitatively and quantitatively meaningful. It is equally against this exacting standard that we assess the public participation conducted by the National Assembly in connection with the impeachment of His Excellency Gachagua. On the question of notice, the National Assembly adduced evidence that notices of the public participation exercise were published in multiple newspapers of wide national circulation, including the Daily Nation, the Standard, the Star, and Taifa Leo on the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th of October 2024. We recognize that the publication of the notices in both English and Kiswahili was a deliberate effort to reach citizens across the linguistic divide and to ensure that the exercise was not confined to the English-speaking, urban, and formally educated segment of the population. Notice was additionally published in the Parliament's official website and on social media platform, therefore extending the reach of the process to citizens who access information through digital means. On the question of accessibility and channels of engagement, a public views template was provided in both English and Kiswahili, further reinforcing the inclusive character of the exercise. Constituency offices and county women representative offices, altogether totaling 337 access points spread across every corner of the country, were directed to remain open, including on the 5th of October 2024, to receive public submissions. Citizens were further afforded the option of submitting their views by email, by post, hand delivery, and online submissions could be made through Parliament's website, which further meant that participation was not contingent on physical presence or geographic proximity to a hearing venue. On the question of numbers, the evidence shows that just over 223,000 members of the public participated in the exercise. We are mindful that the significance of a participation number cannot be assessed in a vacuum. It must be considered in the context of the time available, the channels provided, the nature of the decision being made, and the standards previously endorsed by the courts. The Supreme Court in the BAT case affirmed that both quantitative and qualitative components are relevant to such an assessment. Equally, in Robert Gakuru, the Court of Appeal affirmed the principle that the quantitative component of public participation is a relevant but not determinative consideration, and that the adequacy of participation must be assessed in light of all the circumstances. Viewed against these standards, a participation figure of 223 citizens achieved within the constrained timeline represents a considerable level of civic engagement in a single parliamentary process. We say so further considering the relationship between the state's obligation to facilitate public participation and the public's exercise of the right to participate. These are two distinct constitutional responsibilities, and the law does not conflate them. The constitutional obligation that falls upon Parliament and upon all state organs charged with facilitating public participation is an obligation of facilitation, not an obligation